Hi, I'm Josh Curving, and welcome to another Death Battle prediction video, but first, Weiss versus Mitsuru. So I think we can safely say that all of the people who were saying that Death Battle was going to be biased about this one can basically put that argument away. The only thing people are still going on about is that it wasn't a gory death blow, and I can agree, the death blow is a little bit weak. They could have done something more to make it more of a kill than a knockout, but ultimately I really don't care that much about that. Overall, the fight itself was extremely good. They did kind of lowball both characters, but I did notice that they put a lot of the higher end stuff they actually did put in the sidebar, not the sidebar, but the top right little notification things that pop up as well. Like a lot of the lightning timing came from that, for the most part. But other than that, it was a somewhat unnotable episode. I did enjoy it, though. And then we have the next time. This is a fucking weird episode. So Captain Falcon versus Johnny Cage. This is a really weird one because the theme itself is kind of vague and non-existent. The two don't really have very much in common other than, like, they're cocky, I guess. You can't even say it's like they're not both martial artists. They're not both movie stars. Just anything that's really notable about the one doesn't really apply to the other than cocky with shades, I guess. And even Captain Falcon isn't shades, it's a helmet. But either way, we don't get to complain about what the theme is. This is the episode. I'm going to have to deal with that. And this is a really weird fight because Captain Falcon himself actually doesn't have a whole lot to go on. I can guarantee you that basically everything he's doing in this fight is from Smash Bros., which for the most part isn't actually stuff that he has in his own series. He's only actually used the Falcon Punch once in the anime, which we'll get to that because that's a pretty major discussion point in this. So it's going to be tricky to determine exactly what he's getting. But I think it's kind of going to not matter too much. To start with, for a couple misconceptions for Captain Falcon, one of them is that in the race at the end of F-Zero GX, he is driving around the... People say galaxy, he's driving around the galaxy. He actually faces like the three creator gods of his universe, which might not even necessarily be true. And people say he's driving around the galaxy. I watched the race, and there's nothing to imply that. Not only is it kind of like a more of a digital appearance for the racetrack, but it's also seemingly an illusion more than anything else. Like, Captain Falcon, at the end of the race, everything fades around them and they're right back from where they left off, which was inside. So it definitely doesn't seem like that's the case. And then the other major misconception with Captain Falcon is the Falcon Punch that's at the end of the anime. People always love talking about how it's like crazy impressive. He punches... For those who don't know, he basically does a Falcon Punch on Black Shadow, and there's an explosion that goes off that essentially you can see from outside the whole entire solar system. That's pretty impressive. The unfortunate thing with that, though, is that, one, Captain Falcon's punch wasn't what actually created that explosion. It was a reactor going off that did it. Captain Falcon was just punching Black Shadow back into the explosion so that he couldn't escape it. Issue number 2 is that killed Captain Falcon. So it's not like that's actually something that he can either claim for a durability feat or claim for an attack potency feat. So it's not actually something that should come up all that much, except in one decently major way. His Blue Falcon survived that. It actually was there, and so was the, I think Rio was his name, the guy who became Captain Falcon afterwards. So he survived it, and the Blue Falcon itself survived. which might be important because I believe Captain Falcon can actually call it to himself whenever he needs. So that's kind of a possible thing here, is that if Captain Falcon gets into the Blue Falcon, he really doesn't have much of a chance of losing, considering that Johnny Cage just doesn't have the stats to keep up with that. There's also a bit of a statement that, if taken at face value, would also net Captain Falcon the win, which is basically that if this one reactor goes off, it would destroy the planet. It was a similar, but I think weaker reactor than the one that blew up at the end of the anime to make that big galaxy explosion. So basically the statement is that the reactor going off would destroy the planet. It does go off, but Black Shadow actually contains it and overpowers it. And as we know, Captain Falcon beats the shit out of Black Shadow. There are other characters who have punched him and even tried to do anything to him, but and he basically no-sells a lot of attacks. Like, things will hit him and he'll just keep going, keep walking, not even react to it. So basically the fact that Captain Falcon was able to even stagger him means that he likely scales to a decent degree, which would essentially put him over what Johnny is capable of. For the most part, I think a lot of the Mortal Kombat characters are sitting around town-ish level, especially because a lot of the gains from Mortal Kombat 11, I think based around Chronica, a lot of her stuff, a lot of the gains that happened with a lot of characters don't actually apply to Johnny. He actually didn't do very much in MK11 from what I'm told. So he doesn't gain those things. So at most he would be sitting around like town level, I think is what people would be generous to give him. Which I think comes from Kintaro surviving a blast. But it's kind of vague, and it's unclear whether or not he was actually in the blast at all. He might have just put on the outskirts of it. So a lot of places will actually not even necessarily have them at town level. It would potentially be a bit lower. Though I think Raiden also has something around town level, so it could be consistent. Johnny should be a bit faster, potentially, but again, the comics for F-Zero have him doing things like dodging laser blasts and things like that, but it's questionable whether or not they're actually lasers. It's more like Star Wars blasters, like energy projectiles that people call lasers. That is more or less what that feat boils down to. Though so I am personally leaning towards Captain Falcon a bit more, even though it's kind of weird, the stuff that you have to pull from. While I don't think any of it is actually contradictory to each other, like between the games, the comic, and the anime, you really do need all of them together in order to actually like get Captain Falcon this win. So I think if you start leaving any of them out, that's when Johnny will potentially win. But as of right now, I am more leaning towards Captain Falcon at this point. I suppose this is a decent time to say so. I really don't like Mortal Kombat very much, but out of all of the characters in Mortal Kombat, I think Johnny is actually my favorite character, just because he's the only one who's actually allowed to have a personality. So I am a little bit sad if he dies, because he is one of the better characters. As for the animation itself, there's not too much I'm in particular hoping for. I am hoping for at least one Knee of Justice. And if I had to place a bet for what the final blow is going to be, it's basically going to be a Falcon punch in the nuts. Just because of the fact that at some point, Johnny Cage is probably going to do the nut shot on Captain Falcon, and potentially retribution at the end of the fight for that. So that's my bet for it, and I will see you guys next time, which I kind of put this one off a little bit. Shadowbringers has been distracting me, just to put it lightly. So I will see you guys after the next one. Have a good one.